Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
She's alive.
What did she say?
Alive. That's it. That's it. I'm more than happy. It's been 16 hours.
Agonizing waits for Palestinian Canadians fearing for their loved ones in Gaza, even as hostages and detainees are freed. Plus,
still one too many, but it's a sign that we're moving in the right direction.
after a disturbing rise in random stranger attacks in Vancouver, police say they've dropped. Why? And
It's an espresso machine.
I mean, it's fine, you know, so it's okay.
did you find a Black Friday deal? What local shoppers are doing amid the push to buy and the inflation they feel.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. This marks day one of a 4-day truce between Hamas and Israel, allowing for the first group of hostages to be freed from Gaza in exchange for Palestinians released from Israeli custody. But Palestinian Canadians here worry the pause in the fighting will do little for the loved ones still facing a dire humanitarian crisis. Our Michelle Gassoub reports on their fears and pleas.
Hi, Sheen.
Nasser Najjar's thoughts couldn't be further from his Vancouver apartment. His family is in the Gaza Strip. More than a month ago, they fled south.
God knows if she's alive or not now.
But the United Nations says nowhere in Gaza is safe.
The last I heard from my sister that where she is staying, the place where they are have been bombarded, and she was running. That I heard from her around 2 a.m. in the morning, and since then I have no clue.
It's been 16 hours since he's heard from them. It's been too long, and he's worried, until a message lights up his screen.
She's alive.
What did she say?
Alive. That's it. That's it. I'm more than happy. It's been 16 hours. I'm more than happy. I'm more than happy.
Since the start of the war, every day has been like this one, desperately waiting for news, fearing the worst. Does that make it any easier?
For an hour or so.
Today marked day one of a 4-day truce between Hamas and Israel. Some Israeli hostages freed by Hamas returning home, and Israel, in return, releasing Palestinians held in prison. But Najjar says the relief of the temporary ceasefire is fleeting.
Every hostage, whether it's from the Israeli side or a Palestinian side, especially if they're children and women, they have the right to be with their families. They have the right to be safe. But then again, once the hostages are out, God knows what wrath Israel is going to bring to the Palestinians.
Israel says it's targeting Hamas militants in Gaza. According to the Gaza Health Ministry, at least 14,000 people in the Strip have died since the war began. The cramped territory destroyed beyond recognition. Najjar's sister, a doctor, can no longer treat her patients.
Oh, that's my last night. It's like my last night in Gaza. We just pulled whatever blankets and we didn't sleep. We just kept on talking and making jokes. I was sleepy on the way to the border. This was our house before, of course, it was demolished.
Destroyed.
Destroyed, totally destroyed.
Najjar has also lost friends, and just yesterday, a former colleague from the Red Cross. Do you have hope that your family will meet your son?
I don't know. I'll let it to faith. I'll let it to the universe to decide at this point. But knowing what I'm seeing, I lost hope in humanity. I lost hope in humankind.
That's not an easy thing to sit with.
No. And I believed in peace for a long time. And I was debating for it. I used to believe it's something that Palestinians someday will live, and will see. But I guess peace can't come without freedom.
With the truce holding, Najjar hopes his family can take a breath. All the while, his phone will be near, and he'll wait to hear one word, Aishin, alive. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
In the midst of those tensions in the Middle East, the owners of a popular Israeli-Palestinian restaurant in Toronto are opening up a location here in downtown Vancouver. The owners of Bar Haifa are on a mission to promote peace by connecting people through Middle Eastern food. Bar Haifa takes its name from the seaport city in Israel, where Arabs and Jews were historically known to work, live peacefully side by side. But the October 7th violence broke out as the Friends were preparing the restaurant for its grand opening, leaving them to wonder if they should open at all.
But then when we thought about it, we were like, no, it actually is. It's actually more important than ever because it's getting so polarized. If you're in social media, it's these echo chambers of sides and positions and dehumanization, essentially. The idea is just coming together with shared humanity over food. And I think that is just like, it's a simple but really, really poignant thing.
This project is the baby of 5 friends who are co-owners, Palestinians and Israelis rooted in the culinary cultures of their families, drawing on memories of meals shared in both communities. Bar Haifa is set to open next week. And we'll have more on the hostage release and ceasefire coming up later in the newscast. After a disturbing rise in random stranger attacks since the height of the COVID pandemic in 2021, Vancouver police say such violence is now dropping from around 4 attacks a day to 1. But as the CBC's Zara Premji shows us, some Vancouverites say there is still a lot of work to do.
We thought this is too good to be true.
A necessary drop in daily random attacks, dipping from 4 or 5 a day to 1 on average.
Still one too many, but it's a sign that we're moving in the right direction.
But over the course of the pandemic, troubling random attacks in Vancouver did flood headlines.
So we're not talking about bar fights. We're not talking about 2 people in a road rage incident. We're talking about a true stranger attack. 2 people, victim, suspect, who don't know each other, and for no explainable reason, the victim is being attacked.
Scenes like this, and this, just some of the daily random attacks that unfolded on the streets of Vancouver, oftentimes in broad daylight. And while the unprovoked attacks aren't over, the frequency, police are thankful to say, has dropped for several reasons.
That bystander effect is also a big thing. As we've come out of the pandemic, returned to a more normal way of life, we've seen more people on the streets. We know that busy streets, full communities are healthy communities.
Now, while those busy communities are being credited for part of that dip in random attacks, businesses in the downtown core say this is positive. It's just not problem solved.
The reality for our members, though, is that they continue to face daily concerns and daily issues around safety.
Talbot's organization represents around 8,000 businesses and property owners in the 90-block area of Vancouver's downtown core.
Shoplifting remains a significant concern. Property crime remains a significant concern, as does trespassing.
While the numbers have gone down for the crimes that are happening randomly on the streets of Vancouver, the Business Improvement Association as well as police say the numbers are not gone entirely and the work will continue. Zara Premji, CBC News, Vancouver.
High-risk sex offender Randall Hopley remains in jail after his court appearance was rescheduled on Friday. Hopley took off from his halfway house in Vancouver earlier this month, prompting a 10-day countrywide search. He later turned himself into police. He's facing charges for breaching his bail conditions and charges linked to his disappearance. He's scheduled to be in court again December 8th. Did you find a deal? It is Black Friday, a day infamous for the shopping frenzy it can bring. But as Saurabh Sandhu shows us, analysts say shoppers are more cost-conscious than ever.
It's an espresso machine. I bought it for $330, I guess. The original price was over $450. That was a really good deal.
Some of them get like 30-40% off, and some of them get buy 3 get 3 for free.
Unappealing deals.
I mean, it's fine, you know, so it's okay.
Black Friday is here, but there are no lineups and no race to grab the price deal.
Over the years, we've turned Black Friday into Black Friday month, and so there's sales all the way through. And we know there'll be sales after this and Cyber Monday and so on.
The strategy over the last, 3-4 years at Best Buy has been to launch our Black Friday deals a lot earlier than just on Black Friday. So last Friday, the 17th, we actually launched all of our Black Friday items.
Experts say this shift in strategy is happening at stores across Canada, and that retailers are moving away from big discounts on a few items to smaller discounts on more items.
Retail is trying to dampen that enthusiasm just a little bit because of the strain it puts on staff in a hard-to-staff environment.
But retailers are also keeping an eye on another problem: Canadian consumers struggling with rising inflation.
Is the discretionary impulsive buys are really going to be pulled back, and then shoppers are going to be strategic.
Data from Statistics Canada shows a clear trend that consumer spending has slowed in recent months, with sales volumes dropping every month since June.
How many bags do you see coming out of the malls and the stores is really going to be the question.
However, Ian Gray says how well the Canadian retailers do this Black Friday will not be known until January, when the 30-day return period is over. Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, Burnaby.
Meanwhile, Rogers Sugar has now asked for mediation to help bring an end to an 8-week-long strike at its Vancouver refinery. Almost 140 workers have been off the job since late September. Rogers is one of only 3 large sugar refineries in the country, and the strike has led to supply chain problems and difficulties for bakers ahead of the holiday season. The company says the union has accepted mediation. Punjabi superstar Diljit Dosanjh will be returning to Vancouver on April 27th next year for a show many fans are expecting to be the largest Punjabi concert outside of India. Last time the singer visited Vancouver, he became the first Indian artist to perform at Rogers Arena and sell it out. This time, he's bringing his Dil Luminati tour to BC Place. Tickets go on sale December 1st. Whistler Blackcomb is now open for the 2023 ski and snowboard season. Plenty of excitement for the prospect of some great snow, but many residents and visitors to the community are concerned about a housing shortage and rising prices in the village. Arlene Young has more on their concerns.
Housing is a major dilemma here in Whistler, and longtime locals say their housing crisis has been going on for decades, and it's really key to many people's day-to-day struggle here.
How long has this been here for?
Probably about 10 years, yeah. When you updated the new gondola, this is a Whistler Village gondola. No, we got it for $400.
$400? What a steal!
Yeah.
Someone can make this their home.
Yeah, I know. That could be somebody's home. Yeah.
Right? And how long have you been a Whistler resident?
Since '94, almost 30 years. Yeah.
Almost 30 years.
Yeah.
And so, I hear that when you first got here, housing was already a bit of a challenge then, hey?
I used to live in a van for the first summer.
Oh, wow.
And then got lucky and moved into a house with a bunch of people.
How have things changed? Like, where are we at now? What do you see?
There's definitely more housing than it used to be, but it's always been a struggle because everybody likes to live here.
Right.
Yeah.
So you feel like things have improved?
There is definitely a will to improve, but we're still lagging behind for more housing.
And what are some of the examples that you're seeing? Like, how's it for your staff? Because you've got housing now, right?
We have a couple, they live in a van, in a camper van for the winter. And we got luckily some housing upstairs where we can house like 4 of our own staff. It's really expensive. I think a shared bedroom goes $1,000 a bed. Just not enough rooms. And all those new big houses don't come with little en-suites now, like they used to have. Sometimes we have to go short-staffed because we just don't have enough.
That type of concern is something we've heard from many of the other people we've talked to here, and they're not sure who to blame, but what they do know is that something more needs to be done. Tell me about your membership here in Whistler.
Yeah, so we represent 7 hotels up here in Whistler, mostly housekeeping, but a lot of people are front desk and valet, laundry and such.
I know you guys are holding a session about housing and affordability. What are you hearing from your members about that?
Well, members come here, they want to enjoy a beautiful Whistler, but they just can't find a place. And so some of them end up living in tents, living in their vehicles. And then for those that are fortunate enough to find a place, they'll generally have to share it with 4 or 5 other people. And it's hard for the employers too, and so what they end up doing is they'll rent entire houses and then house their incoming staff in there. So that's like kind of a step back, really, if you think about it. Your boss is your landlord, and it's going backwards in time, and it's a strange situation that can put you in odd situations.
Is there anything that you wish that, levels of government, all the folks that are involved in the industry that could potentially change it?
To be honest, I don't really know what the solution is. I know that the land that is being developed for the 1%, and they're making huge mansions, and so if that land is taken, then that's that much less land for regular folks that are just coming here to work.
That's so interesting, because we've now heard that from a couple of people, that they're saying yeah, we're seeing things being built, but it's these big, massive homes.
Absolutely. As I mentioned, my friend who had moved from Montreal, he's in the construction industry up here, and that's what he's building. He's building huge mansions for the 1%, and that's great and all, but there also needs to be room for the regular Joe.
So a lot of people were also talking to us about affordability and how challenging it has been. What are you seeing on that front, and what are you hearing from the folks that you're serving?
Well, Whistler's approach to affordability is housing first. We have a target of housing 75% of workers in town, and we've been pushing hard on that for 30 years now. So there's 7,000 bed units of housing that is covenanted for affordability for 14,000 people, so it's a big number. But what I'm hearing is we need to do more of that. We need to continue delivering housing for the people that live here.
A lot of people were talking about, they're like, everybody's building big mansions, but they're not giving people housing because it's not housing as many people. I guess, on the flip side of that, because it's such a tourism-driven town, is it concerning to have a cut down of Airbnbs, that there might not be as much space for tourists to come?
We have we have a zoning regime that has been established for a long time that sets aside tourist accommodation and residential accommodation. And we have a huge amount of tourist accommodation that we've ensured is available to tourists. So I'm not concerned that we don't have enough. We're most concerned right now is ensuring that people have places to live. And so I think the new regulations help us ensure that people have places to live.
This development is part of Whistler's housing solution. An athletes' village from the 2010 Olympics turned into affordable housing for people who work here. And some of it's for rent, some of it is for sale. But even with municipal restrictions on prices selling these at cost, many people have not been able to afford it here. What's next then? They need more housing, so they're looking to build at least another 1,000 homes by 2025.
Darius Madavi joins us for a first look at the weather. Any of the local mountains get a bit of fresh powder?
Afraid not. Doesn't look like anywhere really going to see any. The only place we see some precipitation coming in is the more northern parts of the province, where we do see a little bit of rain and snow at higher elevations, as well as actually some lower elevations too, because it will be quite chilly because of that high pressure we have keeping us cool. But for the local mountains in Whistler, pretty chilly. And that's all we've got. That's really the only thing to speak about, because here in Vancouver, clear and sunny.
Okay, we'll check in later. Thanks.
Thanks, Dan.
Coming up, a new report reveals the experiences of hundreds of Syrian refugees who came to BC 8 years ago. What life was like then and now is up next. And hello to everyone watching our commercial-free live stream. A documentary about a much-loved Canadian music channel will be playing at the Vancouver Playhouse tonight. A former MuchMusic VJ joined Stephen Quinn on CBC Radio's The Early Edition to talk about 299 Queen Street West.
I'll never break your heart.
Well, it was always more than the Canadian version of MTV. MuchMusic broke the mold of TV music presenting with its freewheeling camera work, and it launched the careers of all kinds of bands and VJs. It also brought Canada together from a central location that shares its name with a new documentary. 299 Queen Street West is the name of the film. The documentary and several of its DJs are on a cross-Canada tour that screens at the Vancouver Playhouse tonight. Here to tell us more is VJ Rick Campanelli, or you may remember him as Rick the Temp, who began his career at MuchMusic. I am just so fascinated by the number of people who launched their careers there.
It's all because winning a contest at MuchMusic back in the summer of 1994. It was called the Temp Contest, and I didn't really want to leave because I watched Much religiously, like many young Canadians back in the 80s and 90s, and I loved music. I lived music, and since I got my foot in the door at this magical place, I just thought I'd run with it, see how far I can go with it. I never expected to be on air as a VJ. I loved what the VJs were doing at the time, like Michael Williams, and Steve Anthony, and Erica M, and Master T. Bill, the list goes on and on. But to ever dream of being a VJ, no, I never thought about it in my wildest dreams.
How long were you there then?
I was there from 1994 to 2005.
Okay.
And then when I saw things changing and it wasn't all about the music anymore, I thought, you know what, it's a good time to leave.
We've got a clip from the documentary, and this is a little bit about your own journey to becoming a VJ. Listen here.
Let's talk about other favorite things. Okay. For example, a favorite line from a song, like just a line, not necessarily your song, but any song. Has a line touched you? Has a line stayed with you?
Wow, that's a tough question.
It's a tough question. Does that help
Let's
you?
move on.
I was terrible. I was so uncomfortable. I was lacking confidence. I was the one to be put in front of a camera, in front of the nation. That's a different level.
That was you interviewing Corey Hart. How'd that go?
Corey Hart. You know what? It wasn't a difficult question. It was one of those questions where you really have to think about the answer because we all have favorite songs. We all have favorite lines from songs. And it's like asking, well, who's your favorite child? There is no favorite child. There's so many amazing children.
So, I mean, I could have answered that question. So if you're lost and on your own, never surrender.
There you go.
See?
Corey Hart, Never Surrender. I wasn't specifically asking for one of his favorite lyrics from his songs because he was inspired by music. He was inspired by artists growing up as a young Canadian. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. I was always fascinated. I like dissecting things.
Yep.
Maybe I went a little too far with Corey. He wasn't ready.
Eight years ago, Canada opened its doors to tens of thousands of Syrian refugees. Many of them settled here in BC. Now a new report from the Immigrant Services Society of BC looks at the experiences of hundreds of refugees in the province. It found they faced a number of challenges, including mental health issues. For more on this, we're now joined by Judy Khalil, a caseworker and former Syrian refugee, as well as Kathy Sherrill, the head of settlement services at ISS of BC. Thank you, both of you, for being here. Judy, I'd like to start with you. As much as you want to share, you were 17 when you came to this country. What was that experience like?
First of all, thanks for having me here. Actually, it wasn't easy. When I came here, I thought that, oh, no more challenges anymore. But I figured out that a lot of challenges here. Like I didn't imagine that I'll be in a second largest country in the world and in one of the best schools in Burnaby, crying because of isolation and language barrier and because I don't have any friends and I don't know how to make friends. So I was really like crying and wanted to go back. I didn't want to stay here. I didn't have the sense of belonging when I came to Canada first, which is way different now.
8 years later, but I mean, clearly, if you were willing to go back to Syria and elsewhere, that must have been very difficult.
It was, yeah. But, you know, everything takes time. And I developed, which it's gotten better, but I just wanted to let everyone know that it wasn't easy. And, yeah.
So what have you done since then? You know, as we said, you're a caseworker. I understand you've got your private pilot's license. You're helping others. Why was it important for you to share it forward, as they say?
So actually, I received it. I received it from Canadians. I received love, kindness, respect, and on my heart, it's like it's time to give it back. And I lived that experience, so I wanted to give the love I received from Canadians. I live in dignity here, so I want to share this with newcomers and refugees as I received it, it's time to give it back. So I love doing this, and it's my passion.
Kathy, what were some of the other main findings from this report? We mentioned mental health, but what were some of the other major standouts?
So, I think one of the things about this research at a higher level is the uniqueness of the approach. So quite often when we do research, it's point in time. Do you remember when you arrived? We had the opportunity to interview 267 British Columbians every year for 4 years and learn about settlement and integration as it was happening. One of the most positive things about this report was we were able to have Syrians self-identify the successes year over year. And certainly, the challenges, but people were able to talk to us about progressing in their language, about their children's successes in school, about finding employment in some cases. And again, being able to talk for themselves through the research around what worked. But the reality is, the research also showed us some of the systemic barriers and how those shift over time. So, Judy talked about isolation and the lack of language, the lack of knowing people, and I think that's one of the issues, is we were able to look over time because we were looking at health, mental health, financial, social, is to be able to look at the impact on mental health when people don't have the language, when they don't have employment, or they're not connected to other Canadians.
And lastly, we appreciate your time. Is there one or two things that you would call on other levels of government or society in general to say, these are the things that we need for refugees to feel more comfortable here?
Absolutely. I think refugee resettlement, being in Canada, refugee resettlement is something we can do on an individual basis. So, as an individual, be curious, ask questions, mentor a newcomer, offer to volunteer to lead an English language class. Look at opportunities to learn about refugee resettlement. There's so many misconceptions about it, as well as to learn about other cultures. On a systemic level, we need programming that's longer term and that meets the needs of diverse individuals where they're at. We need to be looking at systemic barriers. So we look at, for those who came as professionals, we need to be removing barriers to finding employment, but also for individuals who may have familial responsibilities, finding ways and opportunities for people to get the skills they need to thrive and to grow in our society. And
I hate to wrap it up. We're out of time, but thank you so much for your perspective. Judy Khalil, Kathy Sherrill, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us.
A fragile truce in the Middle East as hostages return to Israel and prisoners are released in return. That's next.
This First Nation in West Central Saskatchewan has 3,000 hectares of land, but just one house, the one being built behind us. And it's built from recycled wood from an old grain elevator.
Well, here it is.
It's one of a few dozen they're planning to build as part of a net zero community.
The first Lucky Man net zero home.
The chief of Lucky Man Cree Nation is stepping inside this house for the first time.
I'm just thankful and grateful.
Chief Crystal Okimau pushed for design that would cut down on power bills and greenhouse gas emissions.
You always think about the generations behind you coming, and you want to leave. I'm aware of climate change, so we just want to limit our carbon footprint as a nation.
The timber for this house came from here. Old grain elevators that were carefully dismantled, and instead of all this wood being hauled to the dump, it's being recycled. It's a delicate process, unlike the alternative.
It aligns with the stewardship of Mother Earth, right?
This green construction design consultant says using wood that didn't have to go through the harvesting and processing chain reduces the carbon footprint.
The idea was to reuse this mass timber, which is really strong, and it's in really good shape, as you can tell. It's a 100-year-old wood we're standing on, right? Doesn't look like it, does it?
He also says it's well insulated and built to last.
So this is the mass timber outside wall.
Unlike most First Nations, Lucky Man Cree Nation never had a community on reserve. But with some federal money, it's finally ready to build on its land.
I'm glad that we got a home, a land that we call it a home. I would come and live here anytime.
And the road is the first thing that we need?
Yeah.
They've drawn up a master plan and hope to get more federal dollars. Chief Okimau says she's optimistic the community will be built net zero for the future. Dane Patterson, CBC News.
Some Israeli hostages were released today as part of a ceasefire deal. They were among some 240 people abducted by Hamas and taken to Gaza on October 7th. As Sasha Petrusik reports, some Palestinians who were imprisoned in Israel were released in return.
The convoy of white SUVs wove its way through Gaza tonight, the first peaceful night in 7 weeks of war. Inside, 13 Israeli hostages. Their ordeal ended in a Hamas video. The frightened, confused faces of women in their 80s, one carried by an armed Hamas militant. Children also, including Ohad Munder, who marked his 9th birthday in captivity, bundled into a van alongside his grandmother and mother. Egyptian TV showed them taken to waiting Israeli ambulances, most of the hostages apparently healthy enough to walk. Israelis cheered after waiting all day to see if the deal to bring home these first of 240 hostages would actually happen.
It's just everything. Relief, nervous, afraid. Not uncertainty. I'm sad. I'm glad. It's everything together.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu promised today's release was just the start. We are committed to the return of all our hostages, he says. He also vowed to continue the war after this pause ended. Israel's part of the deal was to release Palestinian prisoners from its jails. 39 teens and women today welcomed and cheered in the West Bank.
I'm good. How are you?
Mara Bakir was set free after spending 8 years in jail since she was 16. News of the deal to release us was a complete shock, she says. We had no idea what was going on in Gaza. As Israeli hostages were taken by helicopter to meet their families, both sides prepared for more releases as early as tomorrow. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Toronto.
Crews are cleaning up in central Dublin after a night of violence. The riot appears to have started as an anti-immigrant protest fueled by online misinformation. But as Chris Brown tells us, officials say the looting and destruction that followed had little to do with protests.
Many in Dublin woke up shaking their heads about the chain of violence that left large parts of the city broken and burned.
We've been out since 3 a.m. this morning, boarding up the windows. This here seems to be the worst hit. It's carnage, absolute carnage.
For a time Thursday night, the violence appeared unstoppable. 500 rioters torched or broke whatever they could. It took police hours to get crowds of masked vandals under control.
Last night, all we could hear was the explosions of the cars, the fireworks, everything. It was just scary.
Between the awful attack which happened at 1:30 in the afternoon and then the subsequent disorder, riot and looting in the city, in our city centre, it's just disgraceful scenes from start to finish.
It appeared to start with reports of a man stabbing school children, critically injuring a 5-year-old and wounding 2 other children and a woman.
It was horrendous, and the children screaming and the women screaming, and it was chaotic. It was absolutely chaotic.
Police say false information quickly spread through social media that the attacker might have been a foreigner, and that appeared to fuel the frenzy of destruction that followed. Ireland's Prime Minister placed the blame squarely on hooligans.
They did not do it out of any sense of patriotism, however warped. They did so because they're filled with hate.
For much of its history, Ireland has been a country people left from, not immigrated to. But that's changed, and this expert says far-right groups with anti-immigration agendas want to establish themselves.
It doesn't matter to them whether it's negative or positive. The point is that they're getting their key ideological ideas being discussed.
More than 30 rioters were arrested, and while the situation in parts of the city remains tense, Irish officials insist Dublin is safe. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
BC engineers are building a robotic suit to help people with motion disabilities walk independently. We'll show you how it works and more after this.
Recreating these native ecosystems is a beautiful thing, and essentially, like, as humanity being the driving force on the planet right now, it's really a question of how should humanity interact with the environment. Yeah, I consider myself as making a difference in my own way. My grandfather was a grain farmer in the area for his entire life. And my father decided to focus more on the cattle because we're in a mixed farming area with some land that's suitable for cattle and some for grain. So we've been focusing on cattle for 45 years, and then we switched to bison in the mid-90s, so it's just about 30 years now we've been doing bison. One of the big features of bison is the fact that they're incredibly tough and resilient and look after themselves. So that was one of the drawing cards for us to get into bison, was just the appealing nature of being able to just let them do their own thing. The descriptor for bison in the grasslands is that they're the keystone species in the grasslands. And for people that aren't familiar with the term keystone, it's the important building block that the rest of which is the foundation for all the rest of the other species to build from. So because the bison have been grazing out here for 10,000 years, there's a whole network of grassland bird species and salamanders and every other living thing here, which basically has a relationship with the bison. So a specific example of that would be the shedding of the wool, where in the springtime when the bison shed their winter wool, it's picked up almost immediately by all the other animals around here. So the birds will pick it up and incorporate it into their nests, and gophers pick it up and bring it down into their burrows. So they have a nice, cozy, fur-lined burrow to spend the year in. It's an important thing for all the other little bird species to have access to. People describe their walking as using their toes, and they tend to, it's almost like they aerate the ground a little bit. In our experience as well, they essentially act like seeders in a way, because especially you can see the hair on their chaps, like on their front legs. That hair will catch seeds, and then with the hoof action, They're quite effective seeders, actually. So when the bison are walking, they kind of stir up some insects, and the birds will eat those insects. Or sometimes the birds will even perch on the backs of the bison, and they'll eat insects or different things like right off of the bison. You know, having a bison herd and maintaining this local grasslands is an important thing to do for the local environment, and something I can feel good about. And anyone that eats a bison burger could even feel good about.
A robotics company here in BC is developing an alternative to wheelchairs. It's a mechanical suit users wear that can help them walk, run, and perform regular tasks. The exoskeleton is called Exomotion. Ali Petargue went to their headquarters here in Vancouver to see the latest prototype.
Going up. And just like that, I'm back. How do you feel? I love it. Every day I love it. I love it even more every day. I think it's incredible that I can walk and talk and just be moving like an able-bodied person. It's incredible advancement of this technology.
So if this gets developed for personal use in the future, or when it does, can you get used to this every day?
Absolutely. I'm already used to it every day. You know, it's not hard. You don't have to twist my arm to get me to come in and use the exoskeleton. You do, however, have to talk me back into my wheelchair. So I already see the opportunity to be doing this every day in my everyday life, and I can't wait. My name is Chloe Angus, and I am the Director of Lived Experience here at Human in Motion. My involvement started with my journey. So in 2015, I limped home after going for a run because I had a sore back. And unfortunately, some tingling on my right toes had me go to the hospital to get it checked out. But unfortunately, in 24 hours, my leg stopped working, and they discovered that I had a rare benign tumor in my spinal cord. I knew that I needed to find something better, a way to help myself. And that's when I got onto Google, and I started searching the world for how to help myself, and I ended up learning about a new technology called an exoskeleton. And it was a wearable robotic suit that was going to help paralyzed people walk again. And I was still in the hospital at the time, and I remember turning to my husband and saying, honey, don't worry, just order me one of these off of Amazon and I'll be back at work next week. I thought it was gonna be that simple. So you can see how incredibly stable it is in all directions. So this is as close as I get to the moonwalk these days. Again, I started to search the world for exoskeleton companies that I could help make a better exoskeleton. And man, I was blown away when I found there were two professors basically in my own backyard in Surrey, BC at Simon Fraser University with an idea to build an advanced exoskeleton.
My name is Siamak Arzanpour. I am one of the co-founders and CEO of Human in Motion Robotics. The exoskeleton that we are building is enabling people with motion disabilities to walk freely, naturally, and independently.
We are in the development phase of our exoskeleton development, and this is an overhead safety harness, and it's really just here in our development stage for safety protocols and procedures until we can pass our Health Canada and FDA approvals.
What inspired you to build that apparatus?
I was attending a conference. The conference was specifically for showcasing technologies related to motion disabilities, and there for the first time I saw an exoskeleton. I saw excitement of wheelchair users when they saw one of their own got into an exoskeleton, stood up and started walking. And I was excited, similar to everybody else. My background was in robotics, and very soon I realized about the shortcoming of that exoskeleton. That exoskeleton could only walk forward, and the users needed to have arm crutches and human attendants for balancing. So we went through multiple challenges, and at the end, we developed an exoskeleton that enables people with motion disabilities to walk similar to able-bodied people. They can walk forward at multiple speeds, turn, do side stepping, change their direction, backward stepping, slopes, stairs, squat motion.
And the goal is for the exoskeleton to be an alternative to wheelchairs, is that correct?
Yeah, so sitting is not a healthy posture. So through evolution, our body is adjusted itself to stand up and walking. If you sit for a long time, there are secondary health complications that come to affect us. So standing up is something that we always wanted the users to have the benefit of. The other thing that is coming with standing up is you can better engage with the community, you can participate in social life, and participate in the professional life as well.
Forward walking. Medium speed.
It's quite a complex thing to put on, right? When a user wants to engage in social life, like going to the grocery store, going to parties, or even doing things like going to the washroom, how are those capabilities being developed?
So this exoskeleton is self-balancing, and that is very critical in accomplishing many of the tasks that you mentioned. For using, for example, washroom, we incorporated a squat motion, and this squat motion is fully balanced, so the users can easily transfer themselves from exoskeleton to bathroom, and then it's exactly the same as how they actually transfer themselves from seated position to wheelchairs and out of the wheelchair. So everything is very similar to what they have already known.
And as far as the rest of my life goes, I just see becoming one with my exoskeleton and going to play soccer and having my exoskeleton and I get better together, and that will be our future.
And what are you most excited to do? You do this, you get to use this every day.
Well, my favorite thing to do before my injury was dance, and I'm so excited to show you that I'm back to dancing. We have a dance mode that I'm going to show you. I can control the exoskeleton without the controller, and this is where it allows me to have incredible freedom with my body and have it move in a way that I never thought it would. I could dance in this thing all day.
That is so cool.
That's amazing to see. I love that.
Giving people hope.
Yes, yeah, it's fantastic.
What are you giving us for a weekend forecast?
Not much hope for rain. Yeah,
Oh,
there we
okay.
go. Nice work. I was wondering how we were going to do that. We have this ridge of high pressure still in place over BC. If we take a look through this, you can watch a low pressure system start to roll in and then get deflected by our high pressure. So it's going to follow up and over BC, maybe bringing some precipitation to the more northern parts of the province, but really that's it. It's going to continue to roll over and then move into Alberta, but miss BC pretty much entirely. We do maybe see a little bit for the most northern parts of the province. You can see here that bit of precipitation, but really the story will be some cloud for the rest of the province, maybe some valley cloud or fog throughout parts of the southern interior, potentially making its way to some parts of the coast, the north coast, central coast, but not likely to see much of it here in the lower mainland except maybe early next week, but really that's it. A little bit of cloud tonight, I guess, but really not much to speak of. Going to clear up by around 9 a.m. tomorrow or so. If we take a look at the temperatures, they do start to come down because of that ridge of high pressure, or continue to come down really, because we have seen them get cooler, but our highs reaching the negatives for the southern interior by early next week and Sunday even. So going to be a bit of a chilly one. In terms of conditions here, you can see that small chance of flurries up in the north, but really clear for the rest of the province, except for that valley cloud, and in central BC, a bit of cloud as well. And if we look here in Vancouver, still a very consistent forecast. Nothing really, except for maybe some rain coming as early as Wednesday, but I would even push that back to later in the week. I don't think we're going to see it that early, if we see it at all. And again, that bit of cloud clearing up by the morning when we do maybe get some overnight right through the weekend. But other than that, consistent forecast, boring forecast, and that's all I have for you.
There you go. Actually, it's not.
It's not. You're right.
Darius, it's time for... Yes, you read that right. Fun Fact Friday. Days after talking about how fish are getting smaller, you're back and now you're talking about shrimp.
That's right, and I love that sting. That's so good.
Good?
Yes, today we're talking about a very specific kind of shrimp. This is the peacock mantis shrimp. It's one of around 50 species of shrimp. They're quite small little guys. They're only around 2 to 7 inches, or around 6 to 18 centimeters. I think I did that math right. They're adorable. They're very colorful. They're beautiful shrimp. Yeah, but they have a very, very special little trick. So take a look at this. You can watch them. These club-like appendages that they have, they are actually, the technical term is smashers, and they can go up to other prey, and they will approach it, and they will just smash. So it's really like a spring-loaded mechanism. They just gear up, they're waiting, and then they just release, and they can hit these things with the force of the same, around the acceleration of a .22 caliber bullet. Look at that, just takes out that shrimp, that fish entirely. Yeah, it's quite a strong, quite a hit.
Looks like an older brother.
Yeah, they can eliminate any sort of fish, even crab, clams, just completely knock out their shell. It's around the same as if you were in a car and you accelerated to 100 kilometers per hour in around 4 milliseconds.
Oh, is that
That's
all?
the kind of speed we're talking about. Yep.
Oh
so take a listen to what this professor describes, because that's not the only crazy part about what they do with these smashers.
Okay, so the appendage rotates forward, smash it, there's that flash of light, and then there's another flash of light that happens. It's gonna happen right around there, right there. Okay, so that is called cavitation. Basically, the appendage is moving so fast through water that it creates an area of low pressure that then forms an air bubble. When that air bubble implodes, it releases energy in the form of light and heat that's comparable to the sun.
4,400 degrees Celsius and generates light. That is around the same as the surface of the sun. It is incredible the force that these things have. And just to put it in even more context, Dan, I know, used to play baseball. Imagine how good you would be if you could launch a baseball into orbit. Because if a human had the same biomechanics as that shrimp, that is what you could do. Nature's incredible.
No kidding. Put me in, coach. Put the mantis shrimp in, coach.
Oh, yeah.
Nice. Thanks.
Thanks, Dan.
Canucks, the duck. We meet a pair of Dodgers who are truly next level. Stick around.
Very good beginning from Christian Torres in lane number 3. Absolutely fantastic. Salvador Hernandez just lost his direction a little, and that's allowed Torres to extend the lead further. At the moment, it's Torres, and looking like it will still be Torres, but Hernandez is making a good effort to catch him. This is an incredible finish, and there has been a change on the line. Now, that might have been Bouchard, the Canadian, who got that, but Salvador Hernandez was right in the picture. Christian Torres led from the front, but on the line, it was far too close to be completely certain. And if Hernandez has managed to wrestle this one away, considering the fact that he lost his alignment at the beginning, that's going to be an incredible transformation of his fortunes. But I think it's Bouchard who's got it. And that would be an absolutely out-of-nowhere victory for Anthony Bouchard. We're waiting for confirmation. It is him, it's Anthony Bouchard, the Canadian, who made his World Championship debut only this year. The 31-year-old from Laval in beautiful Quebec has a beautiful prize at the Pan American Games. He's beaten the veteran Salvador Hernandez into second place, but for Hernandez, considering the nature of his start, that's a sensational silver medal to win. Let's look back at it. Hernandez, he's in trouble at the beginning, gets back into position quickly, but just watch Bouchard come through from the middle. Lane number 5, he gets faster and faster and smoother and more efficient. That's absolutely incredible. That's one of the victories on the track that we've seen in Santiago. Congratulations, Anthony Bouchard. Sheer excellence from the man from Laval. The Canadians have their first gold medal in athletics at the Pan American Games in Santiago. A continental record from Anthony Bouchard ahead of Salvador Hernandez of Mexico and Christian Torres of Colombia. 0.03 of a second. Congratulations, Anthony Bouchard.
It's a growing sport played by countries around the world, and a pair of siblings from near Edmonton are getting ready to join forces to represent Canada.
Two siblings both earned their official spots with Team Canada at the next World Dodgeball Championships, being held next year in Austria.
Video producer Craig Ryan introduces us to the hard-hitting pair.
Hello, my name is Cy. I'm a resident of Shore Park, Alberta. I've been playing dodgeball for 15 years now, and I've just been selected for the Team Canada roster.
My name is Melissa Pavon. I started out in dodgeball from my brother. We played in a tournament, and I fell in love with it, and I've been in it ever since.
I got hooked. The first game I played, I got hooked. It's a quick, fast-paced sport. It's a great stress reliever. The point of the game is to throw balls as hard as you can at someone or try to catch people out and dodge and just move around. It's also great for cardio exercise.
It's such a big community and everybody's so nice, and I'm very sociable, so I just love all the people that are in it that I've made lifelong friends with, and all the new people I know that are out there to meet as well.
My little sister also plays with me, and you know what? Growing up as teenagers, we kind of grew apart because we are 7 years apart in age. So I mean, as I became a little older and she became teenager, she was doing a lot of partying, I was doing my own kind of partying, and we weren't really friends, But it wasn't until I brought her into dodgeball to play in her first tournament where she got hooked, and then we started playing together, and it just became more of a something that kind of brought us closer together.
I think it's pretty special. I don't know a lot of siblings that at our age that play sports together, and we're both really competitive, whether it's against each other or together.
The idea though that was we would hopefully play together on the mixed squad, but we decided to go to our gendered squads and kind of perform from there. But just the idea that we're both on Team Canada is very exciting. I'm very happy for her, and I'm very excited for the journey that we have ahead of us.
It's super exciting. I mean, to be able to say that we are on Team Canada is huge. It was always kind of a goal. We never knew it was a goal back when. We want to take it as far as we can go and see how good we can be, and to represent for Canada means a lot to us as well. We're born and raised here, and we want to represent our country.
You know how many siblings are jealous right now that they want to be able to do the same thing to their little sister or brother?
I am, for sure.
No kidding. No, you play in a league, don't you?
I do. Finals next week. It's definitely not Team Canada. I'll
do you get uniforms, though?
No. Just show up in my t-shirt and throw the ball.
No.
And
you think you're going to win?
Great. I don't know. Finals. No, the other team is really good, to be honest.
You heard it here last, folks. Yeah. And finally, a BC man in Galiano Island was pleasantly surprised when he saw a pod of playful orcas breaching. Have a look at the incredible spectacle that helped turn his day around.
I was just on my daily walk, and I just happened to hear the sound of the whales, and was just in the great viewpoint of being able to see them putting on that show. They were clearly having some fun. I've seen like one or two of them like breaching like that, but never like a pod going off like that. So it was really special. Sometimes when you think that you hear a whale, it's never a whale, but when you hear whales, it's the sound is completely unmistakable. There's like kind of a pneumatic sound to it that really like alerts you to what they're doing. So it was really special. And then to actually, you know, having these thoughts of, you know, that things weren't lining up for me, and then to have things line up for me in such a way that, you know, I got to witness this incredible spectacle was kind of just, you know, turned my day around.
Synchronized orcas. That's cool.
Very cool.
Very cool. And we will be here at 11 o'clock with your late news. See you then.
Can't wait.